I already built that part, because if I completely starting building from one by one, it will take a lot of time, like hardly 3 to 4 hours. So start with the basics. First, as I told you before, that whatever you do in your system, the based on your project requirements, before using any project, you should create one environment. I did not discuss about that the environment, but if you are interested, then ping me separately. So I'll provide the details. So I provide the notes, and maybe in one, I'll take 30 or 40 minutes in another session. So talking about those virtual environments.
Okay, sir.
So just environments is nothing but suppose, let's consider like this is your entire computer, your local computer. Yeah. So consider this is your local computer. When you install anything, you can see that the installation file will be visible in your local disk C. Right, in your local disk C program files, the all installation file will be there, or maybe some drive that's based on you which drive or which path you want to configure, that those installation file will be configured. So this is called the global environment. Whatever you will be installing, you can access anywhere. Suppose you want to access from this part, say suppose this is your local disk C, or this is your local disk D, or suppose this is one your you inserting one pen drive, this is your pen drive path. You can also run or configure anything from your system install file in that path also, because it completely install your global path. Okay. Sometimes, as I showed you, that Python by default it not provide the global path, so you need to manually take the path from your installation file and put it into your global environment. So that's why one part is come like edit system environment variables, and from their environment variables, and this is your path from which path the programs is installed. So you need to edit that part for some when you install the Python. So you can see that Python and Python script. Sometimes another one is like PowerShell, then MySQL Server. Those already I added here, so I can means use from any portion inside our system. So this is comes to global path. Now, when you working with a project, suppose you are using suppose you are using Django, suppose 10.2 version. This is you are using for your project. That's the requirement for your project. Now you started working on your project. You created one environment. This is called virtual environment. Inside your global environment, create one virtual environment. Suppose this is your virtual environment already created. Yeah. So this is a virtual environment. This is a virtual environment. Whatever you install, suppose you want to use this for your Python project. So which libraries, which framework you installed inside your virtual environment, it not make any difference to your global one. Okay. Whatever you install there, which version you install there, it will not changes anything on your global version. Similarly, you cannot use means whatever things installed in your global version, you cannot use this in your virtual environment. Right? It's make like completely and different window you are creating, so you can use your project. But that's not completely true. There are some commands, there are some configuration where you can also take like some sorry, some features or some programs, some packages you want to use in a virtual environment. You did not have to install in a virtual environment. You can simply import that part. Okay, there's some configuration is always there, so it will be handy. So what the major difference is, whatever you do in your virtual window, it will not impact in your global one, or it will make any simple make simpler for your project. So Suppose you were for your project, you started working with Django 10.2. Okay, after 6 months of it, there is new version come. Say called there is no Django 10.2 anymore. Now suppose there is the new version called Django 10.8. Okay, and now the Django 10.8 has some major means in Django 10.8 it already upgraded to some major configuration that is different from your Django 2.10.2. So that time some commands or some codes you already do for your 10.2 may not be supported in your 10.8. So that's why you will always create one virtual environment. So for the complete project, you can do within without getting any errors. Yeah. Okay. When you will work with the professional, you can see that there's those all peoples when they are building any project, like those are mostly using those kind of frameworks who will be uh, updating feature frequently. Though for those kind of frameworks, they must use one virtual environment. So the your global one may not be hurted or impacted by any other upgrading activities or anything. Okay, you may suppose sometimes you may deleted some packages from your global one, so your local means the virtual environment it not be affected for it. Okay, these are the standard means way. So for virtual environment, there is many modules you can follow. One is your virtual environment wrapper. Virtual environment wrapper is most recent people use. One is VNV virtual environment. There are many more packages that Python provide. Hmm. So whenever means you in your real life project, you should create one virtual environment, and inside your virtual environment, you can use means those packages to those packages. So suppose you need Python pandas 5th version. So suppose currently Python panda is working on Python pandas 10 version. So you can separately install here pandas 5.0 version that it won't affect anything on your global one. Okay, so whatever your global one will be doing like Python 10 version, so it won't affect anything on your global one. Okay. And that this is helpful also because sometimes you need to use means from your local file you need to send to your another teammate or maybe your client server or for showing dashboards to the third party peoples. That time from their system you can simply configure like the Django 10 version, Pandas 5 version. This version I use for my project, so can I please install those versions only. So your whatever there will be maybe something separate versions of the same packages. So say when they will be running, they will not wait get some errors there. So if you means give them some ideas like use those version only, so your file runs smoothly from their system also, and there will be no errors in between. Okay, so always use one virtual environment whenever you do a project, means a major project, where from like your framework, web framework to service frameworks, those kind of frameworks if we use those frameworks frequently upgraded. That's why use the same concept. I will show you one line where I mean I also faced the same issues when I started working on the Django. Okay. So this this is one important one. People generally people avoid that part. So say what at that time when they will doing the project, they will face the same issues. Okay. So this is the major difference of a global environment or a virtual environment and the local environment. Okay. Then after installing that part, because I'm not using any virtual environment. I'm simply using the global one. So that's why I can simply means any directory. If I command those files, means those lines of Python's packages, it will be automatically executed here. But if you do like that, it may or not work like I'm showing, because you may be using one virtual environment. So make sure always the path should be inside of your virtual environment. Okay, and when you create one virtual environment, there is the virtual environment name. After you inside, after means the path will be inside the virtual environment and active it the virtual environments. That time you can see within these brackets that there the your virtual environment line name will be written there. Okay, that's the one other another one way to check. Okay, you can see when I use when the Anaconda, if I guess you already installed Anaconda Navigator and the Jupyter
Yes.
Notebook.
Yes.
So that time you can see like Anaconda prompt. Yeah. So when I open the Anaconda prompt, it written base there. Base means when I installed Anaconda Navigator inside my system, Anaconda already created one environment. Okay. Now difference is that environment you can also means whatever you install in your global environment, you can also use in your Anaconda environment too. And same goes for vice versa. Means whatever you install your Anaconda environment, you can use for your global environment. But the advantage is, look, when I use my global environment, if I check my packages there, like only little 5 or 4 packages I am introducing here. Okay, and those like setup tools, ASGI, ASGREF means asynchronous सर्विस गेटवे इंटरफेस. ये होता है ऐप का इंटरफेस होता है जब तुम वेब ऐप को बनाते हो. एंड टीजेड डेटा, ये सब लोग मीन्स ऑटोमेटिकली इंस्टॉल रहते हैं पहले से और बाकी कोई पैकेजेस नहीं है. बट देन इफ आई चेक हियर, look how many packages already installed
Yes.
in my Anaconda environment. So this is the advantage of using virtual environment. So it don't affect anything in your global environment. So after you install Python in your virtual environment and everything, you must install Django there. So for installing Django, the command, whatever you package install, the command is pip install. Okay, if I want to install pandas, then pip install pandas, it will install pandas. Okay, if I install Django, install the pip install Django. So sometimes you may get message like pip is not detected as a something eggs. I forget. PP is not detected as a internal external, not recognized as a external internal and external comment. That means your system does not find the path of the pip configuration where it is situated. Okay. So before now it is tricky because the path is changed with recently after the Python 3.10 is introduced, the path is changed. Otherwise, if you go your program data, by default that path is taking is your first install directory, then program data, sorry, install directory, then your users, then users name, then app data, then local, then programs, like Python 3.10. This is a package where pip file and every single file will be situated here. Here there is called libs. There is called script. This is called pip. Sometimes inside your script, if the pip file is not there, you need to manually download this pip file and copy it to your script there. So after you introduce to your virtual environment, you can see if I go there. if I go to path, edit, you can see that the script path is already I am introducing in my system variable. Okay. If it's not there, you need to do it by manually. Okay. And there is even this is system variable. System variables means your administrator variable. So sometimes you have many users inside your system. I'm guessing already you are using one user because it's your personal computer. But yeah, when already if we work with other organization, there will be some IT guys, they will be completely configuring those parts. But it's good to know everything where you will be encounters those errors, so you can resolve by your own. So this is for system variables. This is your administrator variables. So whatever user you will be logged in, it won't throw any error because those system files is already stored. And this is our called our user variable because my user name is this one. So this is called my user variable. You can see both path file will be there. This path file will be configured for my administrator one. So whatever user you will log in, you don't throw any error, you can use it. But this is only for my that users. If we check, you can see there is no configuration because I did not configure for based on my user profile. I configure based on my root profile as administrator. Okay, that's the sometimes people make mistake or people may be confused because of those two paths. Okay, so after you give the path to your environment variable, there will be no errors. So close it. You may sometimes if you find this error message, just do it like that. Whatever that means, if you find that pip file means in my command, then there will be no errors. Okay, so the after I install Django, command होगा क्या? Simple pip install Django. Install Django. मेरा ऑलरेडी इंस्टॉल्ड है सिस्टम में और मैं कॉन्फ़िगरेशन नहीं करना चाहता पर्टिकुलर वर्जन के साथ, इसलिए अब मैं एंटर नहीं करूंगा. तुम लोग simple means right, pvp install Django and enter it, it will automatically install this library inside your Python library. Okay, so after install Django, if you want to check, is called Django admin, Django dash admin dash dash version. हाँ, अगर Django के फाइल में भी बहुत सारे कमांड्स होते हैं. जब हम Django को इंस्टॉल करते हैं ना, वो भी बहुत सारे कमांड्स हम लोग को प्रोवाइड करते हैं. लाइक अगर कोई भी कमांड मतलब हम लोग भूल गए होंगे तो फिर सिंपल Django एडमिन हेल्प करने से सारे कमांड सही पे आ जाएंगे. ठीक है, चेक. So those are the sub commands. There are major commands will be available, but generally हम लोग को सब कमेंट्स की ज्यादा जरूरत होता है, मेन कमेंट्स लगते हैं in general. That's why those are not so. Okay, so अगर हम लोग अगर कोई भी कॉन्फ़िगरेशन पे Django प्रोजेक्ट क्रिएट करना हो, पहले तो एग्जैक्ट उस पाथ को हम लोग को पेस्ट करना होंगे. ठीक है, so this is my current directory. Suppose inside my downloads, I already created one directory new. I want to create my new project, Django project here. So copy the directory, or you can simply type that also. It's up to you. So copy the directory. Now I have to change my working path to that directory only. So for that change directory command is cd to change our directory, then our path, which path I want to change it in. Enter. It will be my current working directory. Okay, so to clear my screen, whatever you're reading, I simply type cls and enter. Okay, it's good if you handy with those commands, And one thing is more that I am using Windows. You also guys will be mostly using Windows generally. But if we use Linux or any other like Mac or any other OS, then those using command that time the commands will be major for your part, because Windows generally uses our user interface. The user interface is more handy in Windows, but in your other operating system like Linux or Ubuntu or your Mac, the command interface will be your major part. So practicing using commands is really good for you if you're doing a project. So you did not just go by manually and click new folder, go into the directory. It will be hectic. It simply use the commands to understand or display anything or whatever you do configuration you can do here. Okay, so now in my directory here I will be creating my Django project. So that's why Django dash admin start project. The command is, if you forget, just write whatever I saw help. You can see the project is, command is start project to creating one project. Okay. So Django admin start project. Suppose our project one, project name. Enter CLS. Now I want to check if the file is already created or not. To check that, you can manually go to that file and check is using user, but I am not using that. I am simply using commands here. So to list of file inside my directory, to check it, you can simply write ls, enter. Sorry, ls is because ls is your Linux command. Sometimes it may not support in your command prompt. So using Windows PowerShell will be really good option. But there is another file is there. If you download it from Google, that's called CMDER console emulator. This is really good. I mean, much better than your CMD command prompt. It gives you a new themes. So some file path, some parts of your file, it will be colorized into the different one, and it looks better than your command prompt. There you can use mouse, you can copy and paste paths and also those kind of things. You can install, download and simply install it in your system. You can use CMDR instead of command prompt, or you can use Windows PowerShell. Okay, but better, suppose let's close it. Better you can use the default one will be provided in your VS Code. Here the terminal you can use. Here the simple, the ls, the list of files, this is not showing in your command prompt, but it is showing in your inside your terminal of your VS Code. Okay, so just forget for once and use the command prompt for like building on project. So I already created one project file, that is a project one. Now I want to change my directory to my current working project. That's why cd, then project one. Now I am inside my project one. Okay, on my project file. Go there, new project one. Now there is people confused easily after creating that file. There is the same in the same name, the another directory is also created here. This is called the project one. So what files is in here are generally your means your project configuration file. Okay, those are your project configuration file. Okay. When I will be creating one Django project, we may or may not be use or configure those files. But the settings and URLs, those two files you will need for major configuration. These two files like init or WSG, ASJ or WSGY, for your basic processment, you did not have to configure anything. you only configure after you will give it to your production server. That time you need to create one gateway interface. Okay. So let's check one by one those files. And another is one is your manage.ui. As I told you in the last day, that manage.ui what gives you, it gives you some basic commands for your project. Okay, it also connects with your project to your basic database server, that's SQLite, and also it created your global means your global environment for your settings part. This is your settings part, so you can also configure anything. Okay, I will show you whatever what things will be written inside here. I will show you. So this is your project file. Yeah, inside your project file. Now inside your project file, as I told you, like in the last examination, in your one single web page will be considered as your web application. So whatever you do, you need to create one web application to represent it inside your that file. So to create one means project applications, the command is Python, because this is our Python file. This is our Python file. So that's why we write Python. Then manage.py. This is our Python file. Now our command is start app, which app I will be creating, and our app name. Say app name is app1. See, our one web application is created. Inside the web application, they're almost same file you can see like init. Okay, here mostly we will be using views, where generally we will be creating logic, whatever logic, like your brains. So whatever logic, business logic will be manipulating will be written inside our views file, and models will be our database, as will be our web applications. Any configuration you can change using the web application. Admin is the by given the admin configuration. So like as I told you, Django provide a free server and your a small database automatically configured, so you did not have to use anything manually, like any server, any XAMPP server or any server to launch your file, and any database. Okay, and there is another term called migration. Migration is nothing but when you will change or edit, means modify something inside your database or create something inside the database. Now the changes, if you want to reflect inside your database, you need to migrate your file. So the changes will be completely stored inside your database. So that time we will be using migrations. Okay. These are the simple nothing, but that's how we will create one uh, Python project and apps. If we to check that if your Python project is doing fine, just write the same Python manage.py start server. Sorry, start run server. This is your server is running. You can see that one pop-up is come, that SQLite file. So that data is already presented in your database. If we go like 127, okay. If we get that web page, that means you already configured your Django file. Okay. So
Yes.
I guess you don't have any confusion till then.
No, sir. Okay.
Now let's delete that. Control C for closing our server. CLS to remove our directories RMDIR. Then whatever, like project one, it will remove your directory. Some, if we want to check some basic Windows command, you can see through your Google. Okay, it will be helpful for your means your working. Delete that path, close it. Now this is one small project I already created. Okay, so this is our system, means the settings file. Those when you create one project, told you that some system configuration file they will be provided. Based on your project, some settings file you need to change or edit or modify. So this is our settings.py. Mostly whatever changes we'll do, means not only changes, sometimes some creation you need to reflect in your project file. So that's why you need to configure it in your settings.py mostly. Okay. Uh, Next is the Wsgi and the Aos Ui. First, before Django 2 version, the asgy.py file was not there because the synchronous and the asynchronous both app you can configure using Wsgi, but it's good if you configure a synchronous app in your asgy file. Okay, because specifically it's called, it's already given. Now those two terms is WSG and ASGI. That you got your web server gateway interface. So when you create one interface between your Django project and your web server, that time only you need to configure those two parts. Otherwise, means your 90% of your project you did not have to configure anything in those two files. Only like suppose for your production servers, if you want to create one interface, then you need to use those two files. Okay, that's means advanced to more advanced topic. Even generally you did not have to configure those two files. Therefore, there another teams will be there to configure those two things. Okay, who's working with the server, mostly maintaining the server, those kind of people. And generally we majorly use settings.py as I told you, and urls.py. Now another thing is init.py. Init.py, you can see nothing is be written there because it's you can see whatever you will write using the double underscore, you can init before there is called double underscore. If you remember our oops concept, where we'll be also be creating one constructor called, what is the init constructor. What it will do, it will initialize whatever the instant you create built on this class. So it automatically initialize everything, every single parameter of your instance according to that class using that whatever you written inside your init constructor. So similarly here also, that init file nothing but it simply tells your computer that this part is nothing but a Python package. Okay, so sometimes you need not to miss, if you working in inside this directory, you need not to use that init.py. If init.py is not there, it don't throw any error. But suppose here I am complete, suppose forget about Django, suppose I am creating one Python project, Python packages like pandas. So after I created one packages and now I developed it to our maintenance server. So developed it to our maintenance server. Now suppose you want to use some modules of this server. So you are not going to download every single each and every single thing in your system. Maybe the file will be too large for your file. You only need only the single modules for that. So you only import the single module from that packages. So that time this init.py, this configuration will be built there. There is some simple means to little configuration we need to write. if you want to learn more about in.py, ping me separately. I will talk about this in separate session.
Okay.
This means how means you can also create packages inside your local system. Yeah. Now, there, those all are our system means your project settings file. Then it's called PyCache. PyCache is nothing but the cache file it will be stored. So for your means the running cache file it will be stored, so you can redo anything or any kind of activities. You may idea, I guess, already have idea of cache files. You can see there's a file is not because it's not stored as your .py extension. It is .pyc means Python cache files. If we see like URLs, I guess. No. So this is the same. If we see the URLs file, whatever is written here, it's same. Just nothing but some the last modification. The last modification is intro means written there. It's the format is different. It's not .py extension. It .py extension and it already created. I'm just showing those are not necessary for your working. It will automatically create it inside your file. Yeah. This is the cache file is created. So one changes it created, another changes it will create it, another changes it will create, like that. There will be many changes created, and the changes there will be some documents files like the function views, the class based views, another configuration that's including another configuration, like the log file. You can see whatever you do, the log file is situated inside that file. Okay, simple. You did not have to memorize anything from there. The cache file is automatically created when you create the project. Even creating the app, there is also there like the PyCache. Whatever the changes, whatever we do, one small cache file will be created. It will automatically means removed from that file also when the new configuration is introduced. So after you created in your Python project, first it will comes to your urls.py means system your project urls file. So project, if you come your project urls files, they can see that the URL patterns by default, these patterns will be written. If you install this pattern, this is already written. This is nothing but in your admin configuration. Means Python automatically provide, I told you Python automatically provide one small interface to your SQL database of SQLite. So to go into that part, we need to use that admin path. So if we run the server, yes, Python manage.py, run server. This is your sorry, logout. This is your admin page. After you go into the admin section, this is the admin page. Okay. From there, you can configure anything in your SQL means small SQL database. Now, how comes means how you can understand that to go into that part. So the path, whatever you will be typing. Okay, I told you that because in the last class I told you this is nothing but your MVC template. The main architecture is following in this modern age of web frameworks. So that you first the user interface, whatever the input or response you will be typing, those response first come into our URLs file, that file. So the response is must check if it's already the satisfied with the written one or not. There is one called the admin and it's called path, because the admin is satisfied. That's why when we return there admin, it will take me to that file. If we write, suppose we did not write anything, let the server is running, so you can see we will be getting the 404 error. Okay, 404 error. Why? Because that URL configuration is not finding any patterns. What is the pattern? Pattern, those two pattern. Those two pattern is not finding anything. So that's why it will show you an error. So whatever you write inside your web browser, it must match with our that file. Okay. Now if we sometimes we can simply leave it as a blank, so it will not take any string. You can see there is no string value, that is 0, so it will not take any string. This will simply say, save that file. Now run it. That's one application I built, that's why it automatically take me to that application, because I am not writing anything, I am not given any string file. Okay, after server run I did not give any string file. The configuration is same, there is no also no string input there. Okay, तो ये तो मैच नहीं कर रहे हैं ना, ये तो सिंपल सेम ही है, तो कोई भी स्ट्रिंग इनपुट हम लोग के पास दिए नहीं, तो किसी कोई मैच करने की जरूरत नहीं, तो सिंपली जो भी इसका आफ्टर फंक्शन है वो प्रोसीड करेंगे. ठीक है, it's good to use like that. You given one path, so the connection will be more prominent. Okay, so after that this path file means this is nothing but one module, means one function. We need to import it. By default those file is visible, but if not you need to import it. What is? From django.urls import path. These django.urls, after when you install Django, okay, I told you why we did not have to include every single things from our package. If we further work on a particular module, is just simply import that module. So we only import from the URLs, we only import that path. If you go in your system configuration, call programs, site packages. What is written here? Django.urls. Inside my Django, then called URLs. Okay, Django, then URLs. What I am importing? Path. Okay, so from maybe because there is we are using the init file, so inside of utils or a base or convention, whatever the file will be there, maybe there is one module inside any of this directory is called path. It's simply imported, so only that module I am working on. Okay, so I did not have to import everything, every single thing from my packages, right? So those files are nothing but our Django configuration file when we introducing Django. Those things you can simply, if you create one Python packages by yourself, you the other people also import like that. Okay. Now so ये भी इम्पोर्टेंट क्या है कि हम लोग को जो भी URL और जो भी स्ट्रिंग हम लोग वेब ब्राउजर में टाइप करेंगे, that typed string character string literals should be matched with our given input one. So after ये match करने के बाद always the path function will introduce to the next step what it will goes into. Okay, So it will goes into, because I imported one another system module that is called include or Django system module. So include module क्या करेंगे, include module हम लोग को नेक्स्ट स्टेप कौन से मॉड्यूल नेक्स्ट कौन से फाइल से प्रोसीड करना है, उस फाइल से सब रीडायरेक्ट करके लेके जाएंगे। ओके, सो यही पे क्या किए थे पहले, एडमिन एडमिन डॉट साइट डॉट यूआरएल, सो एडमिन साइट डॉट यूआरएल मींस एडमिन जो वेब पेज था उस पे लेके चले गए थे। ये बाय डिफॉल्ट दिया रहता है, ये ऑलरेडी Django के सर्वर में रहते हैं। ठीक है, इसको हम लोग को मैनुअली कॉन्फ़िगर की जरूरत नहीं होता है। दिस वन बिकॉज मैंने ऑलरेडी एक ऐप क्रिएट किया है, सो ये बोल रहे हैं कि जो हम लोग का ये है ना, बिकॉज ये नेक्स्ट जाएंगे कौन सा ट्रेक्टरी में लेके जाना है। अब हमको लेके जाना है हम लोगों के जो ऐप क्रिएट के ऐप के यूआरएल्स की तरफ। तो ऐप के अंदर ऐप क्रिएट करने के बाद, ये ऐप क्रिएट करने के बाद हम लोग को एक और फाइल्स को क्रिएट करना होता है, urls.py, सेम पाथ जो हम लोग को सिस्टम में था। ठीक है, तो अब क्या करें, जब सिस्टम में जो रिक्वेस्ट आए वेब ऐप को, तो ये बोल रहे अपने ऐप के अंदर urls जो फाइल है उसमें उसके तरफ रीडायरेक्ट करके लेके जाने के लिए। सो whenever you request this path one in your web browser, it will try to redirect it into our that app name, whatever app we will be doing, .urls। ये नेसेसरी नहीं कि ये लोग मतलब इसमें कुछ भी लिख सकते हो, जो भी लिखोगे वो उस पाथ की तरफ रिडायरेक्ट करके लेके जाएंगे। तो अपने ऐप का नाम देना, जो भी ऐप का नाम, देन सपोज इफ यू आर राइटिंग lol.views, so a views only redirected to your views.py file। ओके, जस्ट जो लिंकिंग होंगे डिफरेंट फाइल्स के अंदर, those things should be correct। okay, there should be any mismatch, and otherwise there will be major like the path not found, 404 error, this kind of error you will maybe encounter with। Apart from it, it will simply takes you to your apps.urls। so whenever we create one apps, we must manually create one urls.py file, so whatever the app url or some other template url, anything will be inside in your that file। okay, so अपने ऐप क्रिएट करने के बाद हम लोग अभी क्या किए, देखो यहाँ पे कोई स्ट्रिंग नहीं लिखे, तो अब अगर हम लोग नेक्स्ट फर्स्ट कहाँ पे लिखेंगे, http://127.0.0.1, ये हम लोग को वेब सर्वर जब रन होता है, जब वेब सर्वर हम लोग को रन होता है। ठीक है, आफ्टर दैट लाइन ये पे तो कुछ नहीं आएंगे, पेज नॉट फाउंड, बिकॉज अभी तो हम लोग कोई भी रिक्वेस्ट दिए नहीं, बिकॉज सिंपली लाइन है। आफ्टर दैट जो http के बाद कोई भी लाइन इससे मिल नहीं रहा, नेक्स्ट कौन सा मिल रहा है, path.1। तो अगर हम लोग path.1 को टाइप करेंगे अपने ब्राउजर को आफ्टर स्लैश मींस आफ्टर स्लैश, सो वन एडवांटेज इन Django इज हम लोग को देख रहे हैं इधर पूरे पाथ http://127.0.1 कंप्लीट पाथ को प्रोवाइड करने की नेसेसरी नहीं होते, बिकॉज it's use another good advantage of Django, it automatically detect whatever written in previously, directly chops up those part and completely redirect to your new one, so the new path should be matched, so that's why path one should be matched. Now the new one will be introducing। okay, so path one होने के बाद next we will be going to our app.urls file। let's go into app then app.urls file। now app.urls file we are not written anything in, there is three path is providing, means three, for maybe we need to create three paths, we need to create mini application inside our application। okay, so now one path is written like nothing, no string, so it will simply, if we just write that path one, that path is satisfied, now we are into lol.urls। if we go into our app application.urls, there now there is no string retailers is there, so there is nothing to match, it will simply redirect to our views module। okay, now what we want views dot our show function, whatever is written in the show function, let's see our view function, whatever is written there, it will completely redirect to that part। okay, Now views.part, as I told you already, that views.part is nothing but our main business logic will be written there. Now in your views.file you can see this is our show function. There is एक सिंपल HTTP रेस्पॉन्स हम लोग क्रिएट किए, ठीक है। HTTP रेस्पॉन्स मींस जब जब भी कोई भी हम लोग रिक्वेस्ट भेजते हैं एक रेस्पॉन्स जो एज ए व्यू करने के लिए लिखे थे कि दिस इज आवर होम वेब पेज एप्लीकेशन, ओके। अगर हम लोग सिंपल पाथ 1 को क्लिक करेंगे अभी तो क्या होंगे, पाथ 1 को क्लिक करने के बाद ये फाइल सेटिस्फाई हो गए। देन नेक्स्ट आगे हम लोग को ऐप के अंदर यूआरएल वाले फाइल फाइल के अंदर आ गए। यूआरएल फाइल के अंदर आने के बाद यहीं पे है कौन से पहले तीनों पाथ है। आप अगर कुछ नहीं लिखेंगे तो फर्स्ट वन सेटिस्फाई कर रहे हैं ना, तो फर्स्ट वन जब सेटिस्फाई कर रहे हैं तो लेके कहाँ जा रहे हैं हम लोग को व्यूज डॉट शो फंक्शन। अब व्यूज के अंदर जो शो फंक्शन है, शो फंक्शन में नथिंग बट एक रेस्पॉन्स लेके है कि दिस इज अ होम पेज। नाउ लेट्स सी, दिस इज आवर यूआरएल्स। अब अगर हम लोग यहीं पे पाथ 1 लिखेंगे तो ये फर्स्ट लेके जाएंगे, पाथ 1 लिखेंगे तो फर्स्ट लेके हम लोग को आगे अपने यूआरएल्स ऐप के अंदर यूआरएल्स के पास, ठीक है। ऐप के अंदर जब कुछ भी नहीं लिखा है तो ये डायरेक्ट व्यूज डॉट शो पे लेके चले जाएंगे। तो व्यूज डॉट शो के अंदर एक रेस्पॉन्स है HTTP रेस्पॉन्स जिसको हम शो की, ठीक है। तो ये हो गया हम लोग का एक रेस्पॉन्स यहाँ पे प्रिंट हो गया, करेक्ट। कोई कंफ्यूजन है इतने तक?
हाँ सर ठीक है सर।
देन ये हो गया बेसिक, ठीक है। मींस हम लोग का कॉन्फ़िगरेशन और कनेक्शन कंप्लीटली एग्जीक्यूटेड। जो एक पाथ हम लोग मैनुअली बिल्ड करने के ट्राई किया वो पाथ कंप्लीटली एग्जीक्यूटेड हो गया, ठीक है। एंड HTTP रिस्पांस के लिए हम लोग को एक मॉड्यूल इंपोर्ट करना होता है django.http import HTTP response, ठीक है। नाउ दिस इज वन पार्ट, this one simple basic part. Now it's up to you how much deep you can go into it. Okay. Next is one good advantage using Python is we can create dynamically template and means send it to our directly HTML file or any other configuration. So this is one advantage using a Django file. We can dynamically create our templates. Now let's create one template. So to creating one templates, you can create one folder called templates. Important is this file is not necessary to stay means your project file. Template file तुम लोग इस फाइल में भी रख सकते हो और you can go into for in your app file also. It's completely depends upon you. But important is you should mention the path, which path you will be creating one template. Okay, so the path should not be mismatched. Otherwise, if the path is mismatched, the error will be popped up like templates not found. So हम लोग जब template create करते हैं, after that, हाँ, और एक thing, हम लोग जब एक app create किए, one app, whatever the name will be, the after the app creation, we must tell our Django that the one app is already created. Similarly, when we already created the template directory, we must tell our Django project file that in that directory, whatever the templates will be, it's presented. So it don't show any error, means the directory should be found. So your whatever you code there, you don't throw any error when you will be running. So after creating one template, after creating one app, go to your settings file. What I told you, whatever you do, you must configure it into your settings file. Now the settings file, first you create one app and mention it. There is one part called install apps. Last day, I one by one detailedly told you that which is the key working function of each and everything. Okay, now this install apps, as I already created that apps, we must inform to our Django project. So we will read it there inside out because it's a list. The configuration is format is list format, so we retain inside out this format. Okay, now the app is our setted there. Next is our template file. Now, for the template file, we need to introduce which directory the template file is presented. Now, for the which directory, there is one called the base.dir. Base.dir means nothing but your base directory of your Django project. Okay. If you print that base.dir, you will see that this whatever is written in this file, it will be presented. Okay. This is your base directory. Before the path, like this is not, this is after the current one. As when I start learning, this it was different. This was be written like os.path.join and some configuration. Okay, but now the code is changed as the new module. The file module is introduced inside your Django file. Okay, so the code is now different now, but it's works the same time. Means works same from our the last one. So for that, for introducing our template directory in a Django directory, so the Django file understand that the template file is situated inside your that directory. So we must import one module that is called OS module. So OS module, always whatever your operating system will be, it will be completely attaching your that directory to your project directory, or sometimes you can create as your global directory. Okay, it's according to your needed the requirements. So after importing the OS module, we are telling on a Django file that the templates directory is already presented, because I wrote only templates. You can wrote everything like sorry, the C drive colon slash slash, then some folder one, folder two, then some folder, then inside some folder the template file is introduced. But as this is our current working directory, so we did not have to retain anything before, because the base dir is representing the same that directory. So we only introduce this templates directory here. Sometimes the templates directory, if it's inside your web application, so we need to write like the web application name, this directory web application, then slash, then your template folder. Okay, but sometimes you may create many web apps, and for each apps there will be one or two HTML file. So you created so many new directory inside your templates file, and there will be in your HTML template. So you introduce those files also. It's easy, means is good if you simply read this. For my way, my standard way, I feel this is more handy or more simple to write. Okay. Just simply write the create the template directory instead of project directory and write the templates here. Okay, so after that we need to join this template directory to your Django's base settings directory. So to join this, we will use this path module os.path.join. So it will join the template directory in your base directory. Now your base directory is inside your base directory. The template directory is introduced. Okay, now this template directory, we need to mention it in your Django settings file, that this inside this template directory, the template is presented. So if you scroll down, there is one yeah, variable called your templates. Templates is your Django variable. Those are, you cannot modify those variable. You can only modify the files. Okay. So in, you can see there is one term called dirs. So the dirs, there is your template directory will be written. So there is will be no error first. Next is, this is how you configure. Suppose you created one static file. Static file means in your CSS file or image file, maybe some multimedia files. Those are nothing but a static file. So for the static file, you similarly do like same, created the static directory, join the static directory to your another file like static dir, and in your Django settings file, there is one term called your static files underscore dirs. It may not, maybe remove the current Django term, so you have to configure it by manually. And there is static files underscore dirs. Just return the directory there. Okay, so that's how you mention in your Django project that those files will be presented in that particular directory. Okay. Next is, now suppose if we, as I told you, that in Python there is called dynamically template, we can send each and everything dynamically in our HTML template. Okay, now to send anything, the dynamic format will be written as your context file. So context file will be written as your dictionary format. Okay. So to write anything in your dictionary format, first look, this see, we created one function. Okay, there is one is dictionary is called our course. First ignore these two for now. Look at this course or dictionary file. Then according to our keys and value pair, we retain some data there, and after that we will be sending those data to our HTML template. So you need to mention where we will be sending. That's why return render. We are rendering where. What is will be rendering? First, there is called request. The which request is come. If we want to see that request, want to see that file, we want to request using that name. So which request will be coming? This will be coming from our that file, that path 2. If we return the path 2, that means that request is coming from that part, and we want to see whatever will be written inside our learn function or learn module, one more views package. So inside our views package, there is the learn module, and inside our learn module, you can see we get the request. After that request, in which path we will be sent? We will be sent to our home.html. Whatever HTML file will be created, and so this is, if we get that request, it will be directly sent to our home.html. Okay. Then next is our context. Context is optional because I want to send those data to dynamically in our file. That's why we retain as a context equal to those dictionary file. Let's go to our HTML file, home.html, return anything. Next, there is three types of your dynamically Django template literals. First, you can see one thing is written as your double curly braces. One thing is written as a single curly braces. Okay. Now people easily confuse between these two. So generally, if we want to get only the data, simple data, there is a zero functionalities for that. That time we will be written simply using the double curly braces. Okay. So what we will win? We want to get the course one value. What is the course one value? The course one value will be written in our dictionary, in our views.py. Came to our views.py. Look, you want to get that value, Django. Now I created one logic here in our OSM.html. We can also use if else clause, for loop clause. You can simply use a basic template module, and you can integrate into other template module. So I'm just simply using the most simpler one. If the course equal to Python means the views.py, what is our course? Course is Django. So if this is equal to Python, then this paragraph will be executed. Okay, and whatever block you will be creating, we will be introducing one if block. So you need to mention one thing is where it will be ended, otherwise it will throw error. Similarly, if you want to create one for block, similarly we want to mention which where the for block is ending. So in this if block, if the value is satisfied with the Python file, then the next line will be proceed. That is the course one will be printed. Okay, but suppose for now let's think it's equal to Python, so it's satisfied. Then the course one will be printed, and the next will be printed that file, that variable. The fees variable is this. This is your nothing but your fees variable. It will be printed. Then if we want to provide some functionalities for that, like we need to get this variable as an upper format, so that time we need to provide one for front slash, then write the function. The function is, those are already available in your Google. If we have any confusion, means how many types of variable will be there, or how many chunks of functionalities you can provide there, just go through the Django documentation. You can find means more than 17 or 18 functionalities. Like upper provide you the upper format, means all the cases will be your alphabetical order. The uppercase alphabet. Then cap first is nothing but the title function in your list or the string variable of your Python. Okay, we want to create, we want to get that value in that format. So that's why we will be reading is the front slash. Okay, if this is satisfied, otherwise the else block, then this line will be satisfied. Okay, then this is ending. So when simple is that when we will be creating logic, we will return using one curly braces and curly braces and our percentage sign. Whenever we will simply using data means variable for the data, then we will use the double curly braces. There is one good way to means remember, not confuse. Next is we will created one multiple values, like one list of values here. Okay, and maybe some student objects, means this is a little more deep, means the student is nothing but our models. We create one data models. Okay, for you can see we create one data models. Okay, from that data models, if we want to see uh, from that data models, we want to see all whatever will be presented in our database. That's why we are creating as a student.objects.all. It will simply gives you a table format of data of your database. So we stored it using our variable, send it to our variable using even key and value pair of our dictionary. Okay, similarly our student list will be sending this list of values using your std variable, means key and value pair. Similarly, we created one for loop. We want to get one by one for each and every loop for the each and one student name. Here also we created means one logic if table. If table means, if you remember that if there's something data will be presented, then it is true, so if block will be executed. Or if this is not executed, then only printed as a no data. So that's why it's written as if table. Then in your table file, means some queries, whatever cache queries, whatever cache queries in your table file, either it will be configured with the new data or the old data or anything, how many data, so that logged file will be printed. Then from each and every table, I want to get that id, name and generator. So s.id, s is represent each and single row of our element, okay, in our table. So from that row we want to get that value, and that value, and that's this column value. So that's why it is written as a that file. then end for, because I told you that whenever you created one loop block or logic block, you must end it, and after if block we end it here. Okay, now everything is set. We build that logic. Next we comes into views.py. Everything is already written, it's correct. Now it will goes to home.html. Now goes to our evals.py. Check path to checked. Now path to whatever, after we written path one, after we written path one, then slash comes to us.py, it will comes to us path two, then it will goes to our views.learn point. Okay, so this is our home path. So the server must be run. This is our home file. Now first we need to go into path one. This is our web page. Those simple response. Now you can see after the path one there is a path two for our learn function. Path. Okay, you can see that the for loop is executed here. Okay, this is also executed. Now the query, each and every query, because there is a two query, that's why 1 2 2, sorry, three data will be there in my database, that's why 3 is written. Okay, and I use this one CSS file for changing the background, changing that line, simple, a one or two simple line. You can see my style.css, 2 lines. And after added the CSS, you must mention that there is, we want to load our CSS file. So that's why we must write like inside our curly braces and the percentage sign, there is called load static. Okay, so that means we already loaded our static file inside our database. Now how means, you can simply use the tag like you for your basic HTML and CSS work. Sometimes you give the division, give your tag name, those kind of tag you can also give. I, for the basic purpose, I simply use as the single all paragraph tag, all heading tag. That's why every paragraph tag of the earlier, whatever I will use there, it changed the color. Okay. So this is how we created and create and send files dynamically inside our Django. You need to practice it well, otherwise you cannot memorize those things. The only thing you can do is by practicing. Okay, if you guys have any confusion, you can ask, but the only thing is you need to practice it well, otherwise the linking part you will face major issues.
Yes.
Okay, and last is creating basic means using the database. Okay, those you need to for basic dashboards create, and this is enough. You can create basic dashboard, fetching the data from your database. That's I already showed you there. Now last is here creating one table. Now you can create one table in say the simple, sorry, create one form. Means I'm using the database there. So creating form using your basic HTML template, you can do for it, but Django already provide one literals of form literals. So already the format is provided by Django. So why not use that format instead of the HTML one? Right. So to create a form, we must write forms.py. Forms.py. We need to create which field we want to create, want from our form. So there is called, we need to create using the class, then our name, which class using. Then it is some property forms.form, and we need to import that form module. Okay, then created our ID, name, gender. Those are the forms. One is taken integer field, one is taken character field, one is taken character field. Next, this is our form. The data will be inserted. Next is we must create one model based on it. Now go to our model. We created one model, like similarly the ID, the name, and the gender. And we mention is there is a lot of configuration provided in your forms module. The name file and the other file. There will be typical format will be also provided. You can go through documentation or any YouTube tutorial for that part, and which means up to you which configuration you need for your project. Okay.
Yes.
But the new is after creating the models, there is also one term is provided. This is called the meta form. Okay. So if we created the models, based on the models, the form replica is automatically created. Okay, this is called our model form. So from that class model form, based on the model you'll be creating inside our database, the form is already created. So we did not have to also something like suppose there will be 800 columns of form you may need it. So we did not have to create that part. We can simply write what the model is needed. So first we created the form name, means class, inherit the property model form from which will be the features will be using. Then created one meta class and mention which is our model and which is our field. So this is our model and this is our field we want to create. Okay, so our form is created and our models is created. Next is after model is created, I told you that you should tell our Django file that this is the configuration is already we done inside our database. So that's why one term is called migration. So there is called Python manage.py migration. Python manage.py make migrations, right? Yeah, sorry. First manage.py migrate. So check whatever is the changes you have done in your database. I'm using the admin database, means a SQL file, SQLite file. So I need also configure that part. But if we using your MySQL database or any other database, just mention it like MySQL database, exact port, user ID, password, those kind of things. Like the same things I told you how to connect using the MySQL to our Jupyter notebook. So there is a no configure, no migration to apply, but when you will do, there is the one or two how many migrations is pending to apply. Now after checking that part using the migrate, next is make migration. So this is the after make migration you will see that how many changes detected from your database. Now to permanently update that you have to return once more like manage.py and migrate. So the means the changes already performed. Okay, this is the migrations when we do changes or modify anything in your database. Okay, so come back. Now after we migrate the model, we already created the forms. Okay, now we want to configure it using our SQL, because I am using the SQLite, the SQLite driven in a Django browser. But if you are not using the SQLite, you can simply configure your settings file. Go to your settings file, and there is one called the database. In some, yeah, there is called the databases. You have to write like I have the copy there. Nice. Yeah, this is this one. Just copy it. Like that format, you have to write like your my if is MySQL, then MySQL database, then your database name, username, password, your host, local host. If you want to using the client server, then that host, that port, you have to provide those details. But I am using the SQLite, so that's why it's automatically there inside our settings file. We did not have to configure anything. Sometimes this term will be written as a different. You only need to similarly join that path using our base directory. Apart from it, you did not have to configure anything. But if you are using database other than SQLite, then you need to provide each and every single needed the necessary details of from your database. Okay, the name, the user, from the password, host, each and everything. But as I am using the SQLite, so I need to configure to tell our means Django file that I am using the admin base. Admin base means the SQLite database. So go to our admin.py. We imported our model. That's a student. Okay, imported our model. We can simply write that admin.site.register, then back our yeah, name, means model name. But it's if you want to means do a little bit more configuration, we can also use our decorator to import like our student admin class. This is our model, and if we in our database we want to change the database display to that one, that's why it's a little bit more difference. But if you only write admin.site.register and your student name, it will also work as fine. Okay, so I created models, I created forms, I already changes to our settings.py if needed or not. Then I told our Django admin that we are using that SQLite database. So after that, if we want to create our admin, we need to create one super user. So similarly, same Python manage.py create super user. So as I already created the user, so I did not have to write anything like admin. Then after username, then they will be asked password. Okay, then you will be you may ask for if you want it finally or not. Then you mention just hit the enter. It will create your super user. So the super user is created for our database. Now next is after our model is created, our forms is created, our database is created, everything is created. Now we need to link that file. So whatever we write the data in our form, it will goes into a database. Okay, let's comes to views.py. Okay, inside this is our views.py. Now before views.py, first go to our HTML file where the form is created. This is our form. So you can see there is nothing where we did not have to create anything in our form file. We just simply used our form dynamic created form in our Django file and send it to our HTML template. Okay. So for that we need to send it as I told you, send it as a dictionary file. Came into views.py. Look, we are sending our form as a dictionary file. How? First we import everything, models and form. Okay, now models and form is created. Say just ignore everything from upper side. Just look here. FM equal to student registration function. When we'll be running that function, means that module, it will be simply created a blank form. Okay, that will be captured using FM. and we'll be sending that form to our HTML template. So index.html will be written as a curly braces form. Now that form format, there will be some 12 or 13 format you want to get that file. If we want to get some similar like as a paragraph, means HTML paragraph file, will written as underscore p. If you want to get that as a table file, then as underscore table. There is others will be there in Google. You can just check on it. So we'll be receiving one form. Now there is in Python there is two type of request method is introduced. One is get method and one is another is post method. Both of them is nothing but taking the request. The difference between get and post is when we will do major changes, we'll using the post method. But when we will simply do the display, like as I told you, some display from my database and those kind of part, we will use the get method. The difference is get method inside the URL, each and every single detail will be seen by using their the dictionary format. So sometimes maybe your privacy something, sometimes maybe password is already seen in your above means. I will show you that where it can show in your URLs in the dictionary format. So the get method we cannot use that. Only we can use the post method. For the get method we can only use it as a display. Okay, like some viewing some dashboard, viewing some data, with some information from a database. Those kind of time we can only use get method. But for the major changes like storing data, okay, inputting passwords, those kind of major time, we mostly used our post method. Right. That's why we will be written method as a post. Method as a post. Now CSRF is token. This is nothing but one token is provided to give you the more secure server. So CSRF token is nothing but created one means dummy third app. So the hacker or the another party may not get whatever you will be written in your form. It will get the dummy version. Okay, so data is more secure. So that's why we must use the CSR token. Okay, it's already introduced with Django, so it automatically detects that if you are written or not, or it will show you the error. Okay, then you in your form and whatever you write, then this is submit. Submit button means the data is submitted. Okay, now let's go to our view function where the logic, which logic we created. Now, first, if when we created one web page, let's go. This is our web page, path 2. This is our web page, part 3. Okay, and also this is our admin section. Okay, username, the super user created username and password. Enter. We will be inside our database. Correct. Now, for our form, suppose when we write this part 3 also, that means one request is sending in our views logic or whatever it is, one request will be receiving. So the request is nothing but a get request, because there is by default it will send you the get request, because there is nothing but showing the form. I told you when we'll do the major changes we'll use the post method, but we're not using the major change. One is a simple one like showing something, receiving something, those kind of part we'll be using our get method. So that's why this is not executed. The post method is not executed first. It will simply comes to our else and it will send you to our blank form. That's why when we write the request, it will gives us the blank form. Yeah. Clear that part?
Yes.
Next is suppose right. Say SID is 4. Okay. Now something like what if gender is, we wrote the some maybe some important data is there. If we click the submit, we already submitted the data. Now there is some minor configuration, like if you want to give one message that you must enter those file, there should be must formatted text you should enter. Okay, this validation, some kind of pre-validation you can introduce. Those what I told you, those already in if you check the documentation, those are there, or simply use the YouTube basic TA. You can follow Terusco or Code with Harry. Those are the minor validation we already did. So before the data must be the cleaning part also always done. And if we write the get format instead of post method there, it's Django is not allowed. It means Django nowadays Django is not allowed if we write the get method. But if we use the older version, after that line, everything will be written in your dictionary format, like the name, password, or whatever it will be. So that's why we must not use get method for writing major or some valuable information. Okay, some confidential information for some changes or anything, we must not write here. We only use the get. Sorry, we only use the post method. Now we submitted the data. We returned submitted. I did not write any minor validation, so the data is already written here, but it's already submitted inside our database. Okay. Now after the data we write submit, we type the submit. So the request we send is post request. Come back to our views file. Now the request method is post request satisfied. So now create one variable, that is FM variable. FM variable will take whatever the data we send to our post variable. So the data is sent here. Student registration is our model, and the post request data. Okay. If there is a blank data, means the data is not valid. This is one kind of validation you can do. You can do manual validation also based on your project or which logic you want to build, because it's a simply model. That's why is valid is more than enough. So this is the data. There is no blank file or anything. So that's why the form is valid. Then, as this is the data we received as a dictionary format, so that's why we need to use one more function. Is called clean data. It's already presented in a Django. So if we write fm.clean data and the ID, then only the ID is received and it is stored in that variable. The name is using that variable, then this will be the that variable. Okay, this is our clean data will be receiving. Because I wrote print here, it's not necessary. Let's comment it out. As we write print here, so you can see that after login, that the get request, this is the get request, the login get request. After touch that, we receive the post request, then it will goes into the admin. This is our get request, then this is our get request, means the new form is open. After submit button, the new form is also opened. That's why that next get request automatically introduced. Those are the three data we written. You can see. Yes. Before the logs was good, I did not. I can show you the raw version of the data, which data it will be set, but it's not given here anymore. Maybe it's updated with the new version of Django. So this is our data. We already entered the clean data. This printed. Now we already imported our models and our form. So this is our models. Models is student. From the student models, in SID column, the columns should be matched. This SID column, the data will be introducing is SI. Okay, this SI will be stored. Similarly for name and the gender, we get the data in our model. Now save the data. Okay, that's why the blank the variable and the variable is saved. After the submit, the data is post data is done. Then next it automatically created the get. I told you automatically get the get variation, and the get request, it created another blank form. Okay, now goes to our, okay, now its data is stored in our database. Now check our database. We logged in. This is our database. Now this is our app. This is our model, means the table. You can see that ID, name, and the gender. In the admin, we manually configured and changed the display. That's why it's showing the ID, name, and the gender. See, the data is present. Correct. You can fetch the data, you can store the data, anything you want.
Yes.
Okay. So that's how you can create one form. This is you can. I already covered the more, means the basic and the intermediate part of the Django. Advanced part, it only needed if you do on a project. If you want to build one complete end-to-end web project, then you not to, you have to learn those part. But for a basic learning process, sometimes it only learned when you will be working in the live data. That time the data will collect you. If you want to create one interface to fetch the data, then you have to use those web servers. Okay, so